Hi, welcome to another episode of the Wholeness Wisdom Podcast. I'm Erin, and here we talk about spirituality, self-realization, and really the gradient of steps and practices and what progress looks like on that path of waking up to our true self. So today I will be interviewing a dear person, friend, and mentor, and also just a force of nature. She's amazing. She has written this book of poetry called QuantaEssence, and it is a journey through a momentous expansion that I've been privileged to partially witness over the past year or so and hear all about in this book and as we've gotten to know each other. So her book was released earlier this year, and today I will be interviewing her about that process of writing and her personal awakening and what this expression is all about that she put into this amazing book. So I hope you enjoy this interview, and yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. So, listeners, this is an interview with Shirley Elias, who is the author of QuantaEssence, and we will be discussing the book and the history or motivations. I'll just be asking Shirley some questions, and I'm so glad that you are open to having this interview.
Oh, I'm excited.
I'm really looking forward to
sharing
this work.
I'm happy to do it. Yes.
So let's see. The first question I have is that your book is born of a spontaneous realization. I am that. Can you take us to that experience and describe a little bit of what happened?
Sure.
How did it change you?
Okay, well, a friend invited me to see a video. She and I are both in a AA, control-fit program. She knows that I'm a seeker, and so I said, sure, I'd love to. She said she went to Portugal and she met, and I knew nothing of this. So I said, yes. I always say yes. Almost always say yes. Anything, something new or something possible, I rely on intuition. So I said, yes, here I am. I went to her home in Weaverville and sat in a chair listening. She said the man's name was Muji. I'd never heard of him or his. And I listened to the video, and he was speaking to students and so forth, and things he said were not unfamiliar, but were not familiar either. I just listened. I didn't have any. I liked him. I liked his way. I liked him, and I felt he was sincere. And so I heard this video, and it was about an hour and a half, perhaps. And when it was over, and it just before it was over, there was a student. He worked with a student. He sat in a chair and he had a blanket over him. He was kind of like guru-ish, and but I didn't mind it with him. He was very sweet, very sincere. And she asked something, and I liked that he hugged people that came up. He was very loving, in a very healthy way. And she must have asked the question. That's what they did. And he answered. I don't remember either of those. It was over, and something he said, and all of a sudden I said, I am that. And it was a kind of I wouldn't call it a vision, but it was not a vision exactly. It was more like an awareness. And the feeling that I had at the moment that I knew I am that, and I felt that, it was more than a feeling. It was like electricity, went woo, like it just went, and it was like, I was delighted, absolutely delighted, and laughing, and it was like It was the answer to every question I've been asking for the past 50 years. That's what it was. It was well, let's say 40 years, however, I'll go into that later, but I, I knew clearly that I am that, and I can't tell you what that is, of course, not, can't be expressed in the awareness, the knowing, the realization is like the answer to every question I asked during 50 years of meditating. There was no doubt. It was clear, and it was joyful, and it was as it is now. It's completely open, you could say, but not even, there was nothing closed. It was just, everything was fine, so to speak. All is well. I am that. Oh, and that is eternal. And after that, of course, I went, nobody worry about anything. Don't worry about death. Don't worry about anything. But it's all okay. It doesn't matter. It was very clear. And of course, people have been hearing me for years, but not think like that, but not that distant. And then I began to become interested. I've been interested in doing Buddhist practice for many, many years, but I had never heard of Advaita Vedanta. I had never heard of, I had the experience of no one there before during other periods. This was different. This was not that.
So we haven't, for people listening, talked about Advaita Vedanta specifically. So
it's an ancient, just like Buddhism, Catholicism, Judaism, Advaita Vedanta is an Eastern ancient form of spiritual practice, sort of.
And based on the non-dual one.
Well, the they call it non-duality, which means, well, there's only one. There is one. One is what there is. And I guess when I say I am that, I knew I was that one. That's the one I am. And it was a sense of, there was no object, there was no life, but it was a recognition. Sometime later, I read last writings of Nisargadatta. I came upon that book, and he said, no one can say anything, it has to hit the mark. And that was exactly it. It hit the mark. I had been preparing all my life without knowing that. I was always there, but now it was it. The arrow hit the mark, and it was like, from there, that would never change. It was a lot of learning and growing and understanding and development and confusion, and there was a lot of investigation that had to take place from that place. But the knowing and the conviction requires nothing, requires no investigation, it just is. And it's profound. No uncertainty, no doubt, clear. But if you ask me to explain it, or now I can do better.
That's okay. No need to explain
it.
I think that
it was it was earned, but it wasn't sought. I look at it now and I see it was earned. The way that it happened for me had to be earning. Doesn't mean that everyone is her or his own way.
It's not prescriptive.
Not at all. Not at all. Although that's helpful too.
So this might lead on nicely to the next question, which is, how would you describe the shift in your experience? Like, what fell away or what remained?
Well,
If
we're
that's
talking
possible.
now, this happened in June of 2017. Now it's July of 2025. So it's it's a long time, 8 years. Basically personal identity fell away. Or let me put it this way, identifying as personal identity is what fell away. Not personal identity. Still no, this is Shirley here. But identifying in that way. And then what also fell away with that opening. Now that I'm reflecting on it, I didn't think about this before. It became clearer to know when something was founded in truth or founded in a sense of a separate self, a separate identity. When whatever thought or perception or understanding came or feeling or in those ways, whenever there was any sense of disturbance or suffering in that way, or which happened, of course, again and again, I understood that to be a remnant of the separate self, of the ego. It didn't mean I didn't have it. It didn't mean I didn't experience it. It didn't mean I didn't have to deal with it. No, it didn't mean any of that. What it meant was, this is not what I am.
It was easier to see that.
I could see it. It was identifiable. Because in ordinary, in being, which is just being, which is what that is too, there is no suffering. I wouldn't say that I was liberated or anything like that, or enlightened or anything like that, but I was able to distinguish and to discern when something was true and when it was manufactured, even though I was the manufacturer.
As the one.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
or as the personality.
As the personality. Because if I was disturbed by a thought about someone I loved, usually it'd be about that, or worried or concerned for them, I can't even tell you the amount of growing that has had to take place in these 8 years. It really can't even be, it can't even be really articulated. But I never lost myself. Shirley never disappeared. It's just when she would appear. And often she would appear often. When she appeared at that kind of programmed, it's hard to discern, this is my whole thing about being and becoming. When I'm in being, or when any of us are, just go to being, as Rupert Spira says so beautifully. It can't be explicated, but it's known. There's knowing what you are. When there's a whole lot of story, there's a whole lot of talk about it, and a whole lot of worry, and about thinking about the future, and this happened to this, and what should I do, and how it goes round and round, then at that moment when that would happen, I would get out. Usually it happened in bed in the morning or something like that. Get out and go and sit and meditate. I think I have I'm very fortunate because I love meditation. I started meditating, now it's 20, what is it now, 2025? I started meditating in 1972.
Over 50 years.
That's a long time.
Yep.
And I've gone through various understandings and so forth, but always I can come to clarity. And
so did meditation change?
yes.
Interesting.
Because there's no, but it has to, anything you do, even if you're washing a dish, if you wash a dish for 50 years, you don't wash it the same way necessarily. I started out with TM. I went from TM, then, and I knew it didn't work for me, and I went to a 12-step program, and I was completely confused. Had a dark night of the soul, and I picked up a book by Troy Jumpa, which I have right on my table in my sunroom, which is where I meditate. Because I read it again recently. I needed to check something out, called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. And the story of how I came to that book is really interesting. What happened was I was having a dark, should I tell the story?
Sure, yeah.
I was having a dark night of the soul. I don't know who I am, and I don't know what I'm doing. This was in about 1978, 6 years after I've been doing TM and so on. Every day. I love meditation. I'm lucky that way. It's like a duck to water, really. And so I was all upset, and so my family, my husband at the time, and my kids, my two kids, said, "We'll take." The libraries were closed. It was a Sunday. We'll take them to Barnes Nobles, who's in Manhattan. And we went to Barnes, and on the way there in the car, Maharishi appeared to me.
Wow.
But I was sitting in the passenger. He said to me, "Don't worry, it'll be all right." I didn't tell anybody that he was there, but I heard it and I knew it. And when I got there, I went up to there was a long table in Barnes and Noble at that time that had dollar books, and I went and I started looking. And my son came up to me and said, "Mom, I found this for you," and it was Maharishi's book. And I said, "Oh, thanks," but I knew it wasn't it because I already knew that wasn't it. And I had my finger on a book. The book is right on my table. Should I get that book?
I think they can look at it.
Okay, we'll put it right on my table there. And I picked that book up, and I knew that was my, and I looked at it, and I said, "Okay, we can go home now." And I went home and opened the book, and I talked about the Bodhisattva path. And I said, "That's what I am." So it's always been that way in my life. Whenever I've been really distraught or at a point of no return, which happens to everybody, but certainly happened to me. The inner voice, the intuition, I was always helped. I was always guided. And I always listened. I was very rebellious and self-centered, but I always listened to that inner, go here, do this. So that's.
And then brought you to the Muji.
That brought me.
Said,
Yeah, same thing. That was like you have ground, and it's fertile ground, and you've been taking care of the ground for a long time, and it's good ground and it's healthy, and then one day suddenly a flower that comes up only once in 50 years appears, and there was a flower, and it bloomed. It's taken all that time, that earth, to be cared for and taken. That's another thing. The soil was fertile, and so the flower bloomed.
Seemingly so suddenly.
Yes,
but it had been long time
prepared. Right, you work with the earth a lot. You know that how it goes.
Oh yes, it's a long time.
Right.
Then the flower blooms.
The flower bloomed, and then I had to make a garden.
Then after this realization, QuantaEssence, this book that she's published, spans the course of 7 years following that day.
Right.
So did you know that you were writing during those 7 years of writing towards a book?
No.
Okay. So what kind of deeper process were you going through with the writing, or you've always been?
I'm a writer. So a writer writes, and I published a book of poems before. And I thought, okay, that's good. And I have a legacy. But so much happened in those years. I've always kept notebooks. I have
A writer.
reminds me of a joke. I'll tell a joke.
I would love to hear it.
Reminds me, a guy goes to a psychiatrist. He says, Doctor, what's wrong? Well, he says, I love pancakes. Doctor says, what's wrong with that? I love pancakes too. He says, oh, do you? You must come to my house. I have closets full. That's me in my books. I have closets full. So I've always been writing. I write all the time.
Yeah.
And so the journal is kept. And there's more than one. We have quite a number. I was right, which we looked through and chose and so forth. But as it went on, I knew that it was happening towards something. Yes, because there is a very strong feeling of wanting to give this away, wanting to. Well, it's always been that way, but wanting to put this out, wanting to.
Okay, so you were just talking about always wanting to give it away.
Right.
So maybe we could say a little something about the motivations of actually publishing these writings. If there's
the other book of poems that I wrote, I've been on the same thing. Here it is.
Yep.
Sex, soul, and psyche. I've been in the same field, the same realm for a long time. So as I was writing let me say, after that June revelation, the recognition and the revelation, for which I'm really grateful, and the certainty that came with that. Because I have a very active doubting mind, so the certainty was, but I've always loved God that way. At any rate, except when I was an adolescent. But I could tell that I took 2 retreats with Buji, silent retreats, Zoom. I never went to see him in person. So I learned more about this particular path. I knew nothing about Advaita Vedanta path. I didn't. Although I must say that many years before, I'm always looking in bookstores and shelves and so forth. I saw the book of Ramana Maharshi. I saw his eyes, and his eyes looked at me, and I looked at him in that book. I bought that book, and I always felt very connected to him. I really took him into my heart, and I always pictured his face and his eyes. And it turns out, of course, that he's a source of Muji and Papaji and all of these teachers. So it was destined years before. But somehow I read this book, and it was a lot of dialogue, and when I asked the question then, which he proposes, who am I was still me. I was on a Theravadan path. It is Buddhism too. It's all the same. The truth is the truth. But the path is circuitous, and basically it's pathless. You just You and I have spoken about how at every level there is wholeness. You don't go, and then you get somewhere. You're always there. You're never not there. Except you don't know it. Or you know something, but you don't know what you then will know later or know more deeply.
I have a question that's pretty related to this I'd like to ask. It's so it's about personal self-progress. So I know you have a history of being a psychoanalyst for many, many years. So you have a good, deep understanding of psychology.
Right.
So I have two questions related to this, but I think the first one be maybe more appropriate to ask is, in your view, what is the difference between psychological healing and growth and self-realization?
Oh, what a great question. What a great question. Okay, this brings me to something that I've been thinking about recently, which is sounds dual, but it really isn't dual because there's only one. But we do think that way. The mind is dual, good and bad, hard and soft, yes and no, black and white, etc.
It's in the programming.
Yes, it's there. So I have thought of this as being and becoming. Imagine it as the two wings of a human being. I'm so glad you asked this. I like to think. I'm so glad. I think of it as two wings. We have a left and right, and so forth. And the brain is bifurcated, and so we have the corpus callosum to unite it, and we have hands that unite, and there is union. But in the human being, we have to have an ego. We have to be able to function. It's related to the body and mind. We function. We walk and we talk and we learn language and we have the senses and we're like sponges early on. Whatever the family, we take it in, we take it in, we take it, and we take in what the culture offers and what the family offers. We're not just as pure. We are pure being, basically, but there's also becoming. We start off as an old site, and then we end up 87 years later as this. Weird. It's weird. So the becoming has to do with the psyche, not really who we are, but what we are. We are. There's an ego. It's not a thing, but it's a kind of a mental functioning. And there's the shadow. There's the parts we don't want to see, and there are problems. Human beings are problem people, and there are difficulties, and there's pain, and there's feeling. There's Buddha said basically in the Diamond Sutra, there we are the senses. We are thought, perception, sensation, feelings, and consciousness. It's like 5 rivers, and the rivers all come together and flow as one. But there are ways. For example, when I was 33 or 32, one of those, I was extremely unhappy. I was confused and unhappy. I was teaching at that time. I was teaching junior school at that time. And a friend of mine who was also a teacher was ordinarily bouncing off the walls even more than me. I saw that she wasn't bouncing off the walls anymore. So I said to her, Harriet, how come you seem so well? She told me, well, I'm seeing a wonderful therapist. I said, can I please have her name?
Yeah.
And nobody in my family had ever gone for therapy. And at the time wasn't, let me see when that was. I hadn't yet started meditating. I don't think so. No, I was teaching. It was before anything. And I called this woman and I went up to see her. And I was living in Brooklyn and with my family, my children and my husband. And I went up to see her. And we fell in love. She was my mentor. I was her prodigy. And Florence Joseph, what's her name? Florence Flojo, I call her. And I sat there in her office in a chair, and I was very impressed with her. Seemed very elegant to me, and smoking a cigarette. I had no idea. And sat there. And I said to her, I remember this so clearly. I said, I have a wonderful husband and beautiful children, and I have a good job, but it's not enough. She said, of course it's not. Of course it's. I thought I would fall out of that chair. Because everyone before that had always said to me, what's wrong with you? Isn't that enough?
She said, of course.
She said, of course it's not enough. But I fell in love with you. Yeah. She's very good. And continued to see her 2 or 3 times a week, 7 years.
Wow.
And I would say what I learned there was the very thing you're talking about. I recovered my history. I understood myself. I saw what had happened. What I would like to say at this moment is a poem that I wrote. I'm a poet. Yeah. And a poem that I wrote right after I left the office and I came home. And this is the poem. For so many years, I lived in a dream, ahistoric, unbearable reality. I rendered it unreal. Amnesiac, I covered holes where frozen bones of feeling skeletons lay buried. Reclamation, finding bits of my lost self and gluing them to who I am becoming. And that was the process that then began to take place. And
1/2 of these hemispheres is becoming?
Yes. Develop an identity, but more so, I remember the first dreams that I put to her. It was so significant. I learned about who I was. I came from, and what my problems were, what the blocks were, the whole thing. It wasn't the end of my therapy when I left her. I remember I was like tired of going into my every day. By that time, I probably moved to it. I don't even remember, but it's not relevant. But I remember I said to her, but one of the great traumas of my life was the Holocaust. Many members of my family were murdered in the Holocaust, and I had early trauma with that. And, to my daughter, fear of something happening to her. I didn't even know that I had named her for a cousin of mine who had died in the camps. Didn't know anything. The whole thing was just very buried. Skeleton. I had no idea. I knew nothing. And then one day I was very worried. I would work near where I lived so I could sort of keep an eye in a way on my kid. My daughter especially, she was younger, but both of them. And one day I would call and I got home from school and so forth. But one day I couldn't find her. I panicked. I brought it to Florence. And that's when she uncovered the whole trauma of that. My mother and the floor and falling down and the whole. And it was like So, wow. You have those dreams sometimes where you're in a house, and then it turns out to be kind of a mansion because you open one door and you go in, and suddenly there are so many rooms. You walk into one room and it opens into another room. There are so many. Mm-hmm. It was like that. Just like that's what I am. I'm a mansion, really. Mm-hmm. With so many rooms, and I understood all of the rooms. And I remember saying to Florence, "Oh, when will I be finished with this?" And she said, "Oh," she said, "you'll miss your Florence when you're done." I'm like, "Oh, still, so I don't. When will I be done?" And she said, "We'll know when you're done." And I went away to visit some relatives of mine in Florida one January, my uncle, and had a dream that I opened the oven and I took out a cake and it was baked. And I went back and told her. And it's so interesting that the Holocaust trauma, the dream that ended was a cake that was baked in an oven. Weird. The mind is so amazing. And after that, I went to Gestalt Synergy with Alana Rubenfeld and all my work with Gene Houston, on and on and on.
Opened up this whole world of psychological
and touch therapy and what to do. And by this time, of course, I was already practicing, and I had my office and I was practicing. All of this happened, but it all opened really with saying, "I'm in trouble, and I need help."
Can't skip that part.
No, you have to. Even many teachers I heard that are already awakened. I hate that word, by the way, because what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, we don't use that word.
No, so stupid. So who realize, many who are realized, we can use that, or realize what we really are. That are not confined, or realize what we really are. That we are one, and that we are whole, and that we are eternal and infinite. Still have issues because of all of these childhood things, and who knows beyond childhood, if there are other life, whatever we carry. We are not, there's nothing single separate. We're part of a collective. And so who knows what is influencing what. But that psychological work has to be done.
That leads me to the question. The next psychological kind of related question is, do you, in your experience after these 8 years have gone by, anything like personal growth, or has the notion of a self progressing become obsolete in some way?
Oh, what an interesting question. But ask that again.
Sure, yeah. Do you still experience anything like personal growth, or has the notion of a self progressing become obsolete for you?
That's so interesting. It's a wonderful question. You're asking a wonderful question.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you. Well, it seems to me that I still, even this week, need to do work. I'll call it work, make of it, to be liberated from beliefs and ideas that have been implanted that I have no awareness of. But what happens is a situation, because there's no personal, there's no personal self, so to speak. We use the word self. There's a self. We are self, but there's no personal identity as a separate self. I'm able to receive feedback or encounter in relationship beliefs that I don't even know are there. Like the belief that I've had, and I just discovered this. I think it's best to describe it in this way. The belief that I've had all my life, as long as I can remember, is that I have to help people. I have to, especially people I love. I have an obligation and a duty, if they are in pain or suffering, that I have to do something to relieve that suffering. I've always felt this with my mother, with my sister particularly, and so forth. I didn't understand until like a week ago, really a week, that this was a duty, that I thought this was an intrinsic aspect of myself. This was just the way I was, or somehow. Well, as it turns out, this is the way I am. It is a natural, I'll have a whole other theory about something else, but maybe sometime we'll go there. There's a whole natural my nature is such that I just do. You know what Florence said to me? Florence said to me, this was after I had been there for a while. After I was there for no time at all, I was teaching, I went to social work school, I became a MSW, and then I went to individual therapy, et cetera, et cetera. It all happened in a day. And within a couple of months, complete change. And she said to me, are you happy being a teacher? And I said, no, not really. In junior high school, no, kids throwing paper at each other, not what I want to be spending my time. Of course, the women's movement was up by now. So I was totally enmeshed in consciousness raising, at that time. So, well, what would you like to do? She said. I said, I think I should be a psychiatrist. I said, but there's no way I'm going to go to medical school. She said, well, you could be a social worker. I said, a social worker? I don't want to bring food in little baskets to people. She said, I'm a social worker. You're a social worker? Yes. Oh my God. I went home and told Joe, I'm leaving teaching after NYU. It had just extended its time for registration. He was shaving and said, Shirley, I just heard NYU was extending its time. I went there, and that was the end of that. It was, everything was just like that in my life. So I said I'd be a psychiatrist, but I didn't have to become a psychiatrist. I didn't have to. And I was a protege, so it was really quite wonderful. I became a psychotherapist, which was the right thing to do with psychoanalytic training. That was from her. She
worked with you.
I had that kind of analysis. It was a particular kind of analysis.
And you knew you wanted to help people.
Oh, it
came from that.
All right, so going back, so that was always there with me. Always. I can remember when I was 3 years old. But I remember. But what happened was, and the family knew, everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows everything. There really are no secrets. We make ourselves think of secrets, but really, everybody. Listen to Leonard Cohen's song. Everybody knows. It's absolutely true. So, this natural tendency, this usefulness that was here, that was just like the most natural thing in the world. It's like you in the garden, right? Most natural thing in the world. Was viewed with jaundice in some way by some members of the family. And it's hard to describe how that happens, but something which is natural is thought of as not natural. It's thought of as an obligation or a duty or something like that. And so I didn't even realize that belief. But a good friend of mine was able to tell me that something I said to him in response wasn't pleasing to him. He told me why, and I looked at it, and I had no you could tell me anything. I don't take offense. Who would take offense?
And this was recently.
Yes, just recently. It's like, no, good, tell me, please, let me hear this, let me investigate. It's not personal. There's nothing personal here to be just upset about. That's a big change.
So things they come up, but it's nothing to be ashamed of, or don't tell me, I don't want to know.
Exactly. There's no defensiveness there about that, because there's nothing to defend.
So maybe it's not personal growth. It's not thought of in that way.
It's not right. No.
But
it's more. It's liberation.
Yeah, the way you described it, uncovering.
Yes, it's a liberation from attitudes and beliefs and ideas and stuff that no longer fit. That were there to protect or defend the illusion, But that I don't sense the need for that anymore. If that feeling arises, kind of a hurt or an insult or something like that, I immediately, it doesn't hold water. It's like it just goes right through. It doesn't. There's nowhere for it to land. If it does land, then I know it has to be examined, and it has to be sought through, and it has to see what the root is. Oh, what's the root of that? And then it has to be uprooted. That still happens. You could call that personal growth. You could call it that. It's because even in personal growth, it's the same process.
Right, uprooting. We just call it growth. Right.
But it'll come up. It'll definitely come up, and it doesn't have to be in response to somebody else. It could be me in response to my own thought, which also happens. And the mind will make up many things. It will. If any of that feeling comes up, that kind of like, I can see that there are still vestiges. There's still some identification, vestiges with some of those things. I can call it character. I can call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter what you call it. It still needs to be attended to, because I'm absolutely. Well, let me not say it is absolute, but there's a little fear might come up. Yes, completely open. Tell me anything. I love God. I am that. I came from that. I'm an emanation of being. That's all I am. And that's, if we're here so that God can see himself, and we are that, I want unblemished. And it's not about me, but for the whole, for one. I came here to live in the light. That's my purpose. I was given that as well, told that in a beautiful, beautiful way. I've had many mystical experiences over the years, many. And they all come from love, the most deepest and most beautiful, unattached and open love, the emanation, all that we are. All of that has come to me in these years. I have been so supremely blessed. Even the suffering, there's been plenty of that as well. You don't get through this life that way without that. I don't think. If you do, well, good for you, but certainly not here. But this whole thing is so amazing. Every leaf on the tree, every human, it's all, the whole thing is magic. You have to read my book.
Yeah, that's it. And
It's all in there.
This is it really brings me up to about poetry specifically.
But did that answer your question?
It really did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The necessity of unearthing or allowing things to be unearthed, uprooted, the willingness to participate in that, not for a personal end,
Right.
but for the one, that
Exactly.
unblemished image. I love the way you said that.
Exactly.
I want it to be unblemished for God to see herself.
Yes.
The question on poetry I had, being a poet much longer than these past 8 years,
Right.
what for you makes poetry a fitting form for conveying something as ineffable as waking up, or what some call awakening, we don't, realization? What for you makes poetry a fitting form for conveying the ineffable?
Well, first of all, it's natural. It's the way in which I've always expressed myself. So I haven't thought about it in that way. The most natural expression. I've tried writing other things. Some are. I read some prose that I've read. Excuse me. It packs a while. But poetry admits that what is true and real cannot be expressed. And yet it touches us and gives that feeling. It's a pointer to what we are. I was telling you earlier today, but I don't want to teach anybody anything anymore in my writing. I don't want anything to be pragmatic in that way. I don't. And you can't teach this, of course, but there are pointers. You point to it. I think even the only thing we're saying is just a pointer.
Right.
I mean, you still get up, you still go to the bathroom, you still have to take a shower, you still have to, whatever, babysit the kid or whatever you have to do, you still have to do it. That's part of, but anyway, that's what we do. Go to the grocery store or whatever you do, and that was confusing to me at first. What do I do if there's no self? What does that mean? But who's drinking the milk or whatever? That's all mind. That's all the mind. Yes. And it has nothing to do with that. I think that each of us probably, it turns out, experiences the truth in our own unique way. I think, remember when the Buddha spoke, he at the end of his talk, he held up a flower. And one person got it. How many flowers are there? Infinite variety. And even within tulips, how many tulips are there? I mean, how many roses? How many daffodils, for God's sake? How many? Everything. The infinity of everything. So how would it be that every one of us, humans, so complex, would experience the same thing? I mean, really. Absurd. And we know that things are quantum. You cannot measure them. You cannot describe them.
Right. The meaning, the feeling, looking into a flower evokes is unique. Each individual experiences that in a private way. It cannot be given directly. But
each of us experiences that.
Yes.
So that's the being. We share that. So that's consciousness. There's one consciousness. You look at the flower and you look at it and you receive Anne's relationship. I look in and I receive Shirley's relationship. But the relationship we receive, that relationship, that we receive, that's the same, that's one. So I can know you because I know me, I can know you, you can know me. Not exactly what we experience, but that we are experiencing something similar, because it is consciousness that we're experiencing. It's always consciousness, it's awareness, and we are that. We
And
are
that's not even similar. It's
exactly the same.
exactly the same.
It's one. You think about the magnificent intelligence that arranges all this. You know, when I first got sober, that's 40 years ago, I was standing in the basement in Trenton, New Jersey, holding hands with a group of people, and they were saying a prayer. I don't remember. No, the Lord say it was the Lord's Prayer. Who knows? And I heard a voice. The voice I've been hearing all my life was, it's an inner voice, but it doesn't sound like my voice. And I'm hearing it, but it's not, nobody else is hearing it. And it said, it's all arranged.
It's all arranged.
And I didn't know what that meant, but it gave me great comfort. And little by slowly, as they say, I've been discovering, if you call it discovering, the meaning of that. And you just, and that's the amazing intelligence of the one. These things that happen, just like, it blows your mind.
So maybe that poetry being such a natural expression for you, that's that amazing intelligence.
Yes.
It's
yes.
not, it works because poetry works in this kind of way. It's just that intelligence flows through Shirley as poetry.
Right. It's true. That sounds wonderful.
That's what I hear
Yeah.
as you're saying it.
Yeah.
It's all arranged.
Right.
I don't know why poetry works for that, but it's arranged to be.
Yes,
that
that's
way.
what I've been writing poetry all my life.
And well, too.
Since I'm little.
Yeah.
And always I would have, am I really a poet? Can I call myself a poet? Dare I call myself? What the fuck? You know, let it go, girl. Just put the pencil in your hand or whatever, the pen.
And now these pancakes.
I know, right, pancakes. I know that I'm a poet because I love a certain kind of a pen and a certain kind of paper.
Yeah, only a poet.
I love that certain pen that I have, certain paper.
Oh.
It's like a painter, wants certain paints and, you know, just certain implements that you feel aid your flow.
Aids the flow.
Yes, it's really the flow.
It's just an extension of the flow.
Right. And yet, as you point out, we do have all these other things to deal with.
Right.
All these other ways.
Right.
I heard something beautiful today. I heard Joanna Macy. She passed away. Just passed away. I just saw that. And she went to this shaman. This in Tibet. She worked with that. And two things that we need one is compassion. And compassion, that's natural here. The other, which I cannot now remember, it was really, I think what it was like getting out there and doing the work. That we are in a difficult time. This is a time on earth, a shifting time, an awakening time. We hear that again and again. We hear so many people in a dark time. And the light bringers have to come, but compassion is too hot. We need something, she said, cold. We need, I guess it is to do the work. Not just compassion, but to understand what we are, to understand how it works, to understand the good and the evil that we each of us embody. And, Simone Weil said, she's a brilliant French woman, and she said that evil, and this made so much sense to me, that evil is the destruction of innocence. And I thought about Potter. Potter is the little 2-year-old friend of my friend that I adore. And recently, one of the dogs in the house turned on her, and she was inconsolable. Fortunately, she wasn't badly hurt. She was inconsolable, and I saw that her innocence was ruined in that moment, and made me so angry at the dog, which is ridiculous, but it was like,
what a clear example, though, of
Yeah.
that it's here and then it's obliterated.
right,
It doesn't come back.
right,
Innocence doesn't come back.
right. And that happens. List again to a podcast of Joanne and Macy, exactly how it was described, to balance compassion, which is hot, with something cold, clear, reason, logic. And holding people responsible for their behavior. You can understand, and as a therapist, I would understand to the nth degree, but still, you can't just do whatever you want that hits you in the moment. You can't do that. It's not fair.
It's not fair. And it's such a crucial piece. And what I've been hoping to express in this podcast is that there are a lot of misconceptions about recognizing true nature or ourself, and that including everything, taking responsibility. There's compassion and there's doing the work.
Right.
There's the duality of things, and we can't just take one side and say that's it, the rest doesn't matter. So I think that's what you're speaking.
Yes, it's denial. It's just denial. We can't do that. We see what this world is when people do that. You know, it's like we've been talking about, you know, let me bear witness. And I can love the world, and I can love, of course, myself, which I do, and you, and just know that I am a creature of love. That's what I am. That's the engine. Love is the engine. That's how I think of it. Love is the engine. That being emanates. Love is the engine. And still, we have to be accountable.
So is there, one question is there a misconception? It sounds like you're already speaking to this. What do you wish more people understood about realization? Or are there any prominent misconceptions you see from your experience are worthy of pointing out on this?
Yes, there's one comes to mind. I had the fortune, good or miss, to meet a teacher actually that lives nearby, and go to and work in a group with him for a while. And while I loved that man very much, and I felt his love was big, he excused himself on the basis of character.
What do you mean?
He said, "Oh, that's just my character. If you're riding in a car and you start yelling or cursing, oh, it's my character." or thinking that you it's a tricky question, thinking that you're better than anyone. All of this measuring and competing and
where am I on the,
yes,
I've seen some of that.
yes.
Where am I on the awakening
Oh, that's so crazy.
pole?
And going as if it's an attainment. And, human beings are so confused. We have a lot to get through. We have a lot to get through. We're very fortunate to be meta-conscious. We know we can be conscious of our own consciousness. We're very fortunate for that. There are wonderful people which you study with that describe this, and Bernardo is one, Rupert's one. There are so many beautiful people that are speaking, joining me. So many people. And I've worked with so many people. I've had the good fortune of encountering so many wonderful people through my lifetime. I used to imagine I'd be like that thing, where's Willie or where's somebody? I was always in the little picture. I was always there. over all these years, of being in this kind of milieu over 50 years, you get to go here and there and the other place. And the work is always yours. No one else can do that work for you. You are given the gift. We are each given the gift, being able to find our way in the light. Each of us, every single one of us. Every single one of us. There is no one that doesn't have the capacity to know the truth, be the truth, and speak the truth. There's no one has been left out. No one. Everyone who is here belongs here and is needed. Every single one. And we're all part of this great light, this huge field of, oh my God, light and openness and these fields of, and everything is here. Everything we need is here. It's already here. There's no lack of, but we do need to learn. I was just looking at that book I talked about, Chogyam Trungpa, who I adore. Definitely a flawed human being, but man, what wisdom. And he says, and it's true, we need the 6 steps to bodhisattva. And he said there are 6. Generosity.
And what are they? 6?
The 6, there's of course in Buddhism it means, but I'll just say it's like the 6 ingredients. Let's say you want a cake that will not only taste good, but be good for everyone and be really enlightened. A cake, you take a bite of this cake and you can live in an enlightened way. So you need generosity, put that in there, generosity, discipline, put it in, energy, put it in, meditation, patience. Generosity, patience, discipline, meditation, energy, prajna. You come to prajna, which is action and wisdom. Then you put that all in the cake, just all those ingredients, and it may take years to make this cake. Maybe one day you put a little of this, a little of that. Then after however many years it's taken, or days, or weeks, or months, or time, which is an illusion anyway, you put it's always now. So now you put the ingredients in, and you bake it with, again, the oven. You bake it. Ovens can be good. They're not all for death. Ovens can be for good. You put it in the oven, take it out, and eat that. Like, those 6 ingredients are so important. And I haven't looked at that now for years and years and years. But I was meditating, and something that to me, I saw that book in my mind's eye. So I went to the shelf. Of course, I took the book, and it reminded me again: generosity, patience, discipline, meditation, energy, knowledge. There's a feeling, yes, yes, this life has been really worthwhile. Yes. I've always been moved in those directions. So another time I'd like to talk to you about my thoughts about astrology, and
Yes, let's do another
let's do another
mystical side of life.
I'd love to do that.
Very.
Because that came to mind also, theory, and I'd love to explicate it.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
Yes, share it. So I think I have maybe one question, and then if you could do a reading, if you wanted to read a poem.
I would be happy to.
That would be nice. The last question I would say would be, if QuantaEssence, this book that you've just published, had a single message or thread to speak into the heart of the reader, what would that be?
I'll say this poem.
Beautiful.
Which is not included in QuantaEssence. Think of this as what you are. A slender thread, unbreakable, beyond words, before logos, essence.
That's known, really touches the reader or the hearer of that. And I would say, after reading this book many times, it evokes that.
Oh, wonderful.
It shares that message.
I'm so happy about that.
So for all the listeners,
I do have a poem I will read if you want me to read one. This is recently written. The river keeps flowing. Here it is. It's from there, but I think I can do it with my glasses.
grab them for you.
Here are they. Maybe on the table. Yeah, this is a real poem.
Real poem.
A real poem. Not all my poems are poems. This is called Get Ready.
Get ready.
That we send young and beautiful to be killed and maimed in war is an offense against God, against nature, against the highest wisdom that I am. We are. The old, worn out, primitive assault that was bred in the bone of the collective has come to be cured of its illness. Know now that there is enough. The new order is calling, singing through the veins of the rivers, the arteries of the mountains, the cells of the heartland. Not asking to go backwards to worn out ideas of greatness based on profit and loss, shuddering in fear behind closed doors, open to the new order, which is quantum, diverse and shared, to the whole, the one, the dance of life, with room for everyone, fluid and unafraid, trust and surrender, our anthem.
Powerful. It's almost like a call to arms, but more a call to be.
Right, exactly. It's the other part of compassion.
Yes.
There's compassion and there's that.
Wow. That really hits the mark.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you, my darling, so much. I really enjoyed this so much. Oh, thank you, mine too. You are so beautiful and so wonderful to do this. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And for anyone listening, watching, the book QuantaEssence is available in the caption of this interview and also on Amazon and also at QuantaEssence.com. Thanks for being here, Shirley.
Thank you so much.